Hi, I'm Tim, and welcome to WatchYouWant.com. Thanks for logging on. Today, we're looking at a unique Panerai originally launched for the 2010 model year. This is the Radiomir 10 Days GMT Automatic PAM 323. Now, this one's just a little bit different from the standard Radiomir because it combines two features I love, a GMT and a long power reserve. And let's get into how each one of those is expressed in Panerai terms. Now, the first thing you need to know here is that this is a Panerai in-house movement. So as of 2005, Panerai, which historically, and I mean historically back to the 1930s, had used borrowed movements, customer calibers, Rolex, Angelus, JLC, Frédéric Piguet, Girard Perregaux, ETA, Unitas, Valjoux. Seemingly everyone made a movement for Panerai except Panerai itself. And in 2005, 3 years after inaugurating its first movement development program, Panerai debuted the calibers 2002 and a year later the 2003. And what you see here is actually the caliber 2003-5 10-day automatic GMT power reserve watch. And what you've got is a dial that beautifully integrates that complexity without marring the classic look of the Panerai Radiomir. Let's get into how they do that. Now, the Radiomir, as you know, dates back to the original Panerai combat dive watch of the 1930s. The original 3646 model designed for the Italian combat swimmers, really the forefathers of today's tactical UDT underwater demolition teams, SEALs, and combat forces of that ilk. They needed a watch that was waterproof, that was visible, that was rugged, and above all, was simple. If you're going to navigate underwater in the dark, by all means, let it be visible, let it be easy to use. And the Panerai 3646 was. Now, that word Radiomir came about from the radium lume that they used to illuminate the dial, the indexes, and the hands at night. So, historically, a Panerai watch, and that continued into the civilian watch era in the 90s and 2000s, was very, very visible, simple, and clean, unpretentious, and if it was complex, it couldn't look complex. And that's the genius of this Panerai PAM 323. The Radiomir 10 Days GMT Automatic takes that second time zone and it uses a blacked out hand with a small triangular index right here that moves around almost completely invisible against the black of the sandwich dial. It's just enough that you can see that second time zone when you look for it, but it's invisible when you don't want to see it. Now right here you can see the sub-seconds dial at 9 o'clock features a very discrete circular port. You can see it just below the hand. The hand is beginning to overlap it right now, and it's a small circle that turns from black to light, and that's your AM/PM cue. That's how you know whether the second time zone is indicating, for instance, 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. It's how you know what you're looking at, where you're not. That's basically the hint that you're getting, but without something that's overt. Like there is another version of this movement. This is the 205. This is the 203/5. This was the original movement that released with the 323 out of the Salon International in 2010. It's much more discreet than the later production 203/6 because that integrates big AM/PM fonts and graphics into the subseconds. This one just has that little dot right there that turns from black to light. Again, integrating the complexity of a 10-day GMT movement with a date and a power reserve into the classic Radiomir look. It's just as clean as it was, but it's a little bit more useful for those of you who are world wanderers or perhaps have friends, family, or business connections overseas and in far-flung places. And if you are a traveler, you can actually change the local hour hand independently of the minutes. So you keep the hours, I should say the reference hours, static. You keep the minutes constant, but you can change your own time zone as you please and as you travel. And of course, all the traditional luxury watch, I would say, refinements are here. Let's not kid ourselves. Panerai hasn't been used as a combat watch for some time, and these days they are among the luxury sector leaders. This is the 47mm highly contoured Radiomir case, beautifully finished inside and out. This sandwich dial is more perfect than any that any frogmen schlepping through the mud in the 30s, 40s, or 50s ever enjoyed. And on the case back, that beautiful Panerai caliber 2003/5 is visible. Now you can see it's everything you'd expect in a modern movement. Beautifully finished, fully visible, automatic, with what's known as a free-sprung escapement and balance. The free-sprung balance features a dual-anchored balance bridge, so at each side you see there's a screw holding it solid. That prevents it from shaking unduly when you use it the way you use a modern sports watch. And people today, they expect to use their Panerai, they expect to use their Jaeger-LeCoultre, they expect to use their IWC the way that we've grown used to using Rolex and Omega. And those things are tanks. So realizing, as it designed its own movement, that that was the new expectation for luxury watches, Panerai developed a large balance wheel that was tough to disrupt. It was tough to shock it into inaccurate timing, a balance bridge that was going to stabilize the whole assembly, and what's known as a free-sprung or fixed regulator. That little staff right there holding the hairspring at the tip of my finger, it's rising just above my fingernail, that can't move around. If you want to change the timing of this watch, you do it with variable inertia balance blocks on the balance wheel itself. So there's no little lever or hand that can be moved by a shock and can change the timing of the watch. Now, the two versions of the movement that released in 2005 and 2006, that is the 8-day manual wind, and this, the 10-day automatic wind, they really packed more complexity and durability than anyone really needed in the luxury sector. And when you think about it, though, that's the definition of luxury, getting more than you expect and more than you need. You get something that's beautifully finished, very complex, offers enough power reserve that you could walk away from it for a week, put it on your wrist, and it would wind itself back up. Features that are useful whether you're traveling or merely do business with those who do. And of course, it's integrated into that classic Panerai Radiomir look here with a polished steel case, polished steel bezel, beautiful polished steel traditional Panerai pin buckle. We get one innovation that's rarely seen on Panerai watches, which is this nubuck alligator strap. Now it features a sort of patinaed contrasting off-white stitch, hand-stitched, so a very tight looping. And it's a beautiful contrast on a beautiful material. Nubuck alligator is rarely seen. Generally, you get the hornback, you get the square scale, you get glossy, or you get calfskin or rubber on a Panerai watch. So to get not just alligator, but this nubuck look, it's really quite different. And there's one more element that just sets this watch apart as a little bit more elegant, a little bit offbeat by Panerai standards, and that's the circular power reserve at 6 o'clock. Very practical because it lets you know where that huge power reserve is in terms of state of wind. It also is different than the dog fang, the horizontal power reserve that you usually see on these Panerai caliber 2002s and 2003s. So in and of itself, this watch has a distinctive feature that not many other Panerais have. And if you've heard that expression, Panerai, if you've seen one, you've seen them all, this is one of those watches, again, that does buck that trend. So it's got individuality and charm to it that's not common, even within the well-regarded Panerai Radiomir line. So check out this Panerai Radiomir, 10 days GMT Automatic PAM 323 with complete boxed set, all boxes, manuals, and papers of provenance that you would expect to receive at the authorized dealer are offered. If you're looking for an elegant Panerai Radiomir that's packed with complexity, fits the classic profile, but has a few little quirks to set it apart from the scrum, check out this Radiomir PAM 323 on watchyouwant.com.